Just to be sure, can you guys all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, we
Okay,
can.
great. All right, so just for some of you that might be meeting me for the first time today, let me just speak a bit about myself. I've been introduced as technical assistant, ease of doing business in the office of vice president. I also project manage the ease of doing business reforms as far as Nigeria is concerned. Some of the things we've been able to achieve in a short time against all odds was that Nigeria was twice recognized by the World Bank as one of the most improved nations, top 10. So I'll leave that just to go straight to my presentation as I do not have much time. So I was asked to speak to the topic that you guys can see on my screen, not exactly this topic. I was asked to speak on making impact through governance and politics, but I decided to switch it by saying making impact through governance and through politics and governance. And the reason I decided to put politics before governance will become obvious in the succeeding slides. I do not have much to say because I imagine that there might be questions. So I'll just leave room for you to ask questions at the end of the time. But let's quickly dive into it. What is politics? There's a sociologist that I've read so much about, Max Weber. He lived through the 1930s and was quite popular at that time. One of the books that Max Weber wrote is titled "Politics as a Vocation." Another influential essay of his was explaining how West a powerhouse and how, in his words, in his thinking at that time, Protestant ethic influenced Western Europe and, by extension, the economic success of that region. So he defined politics as the pursuit for a portion of power or for influencing the division of power, whether it is between states or between groups of people which the state encompasses. So it's pretty simple. Politics is the pursuit of portion of power. And I like to, explain this by speaking to the Nigerian context. I think because governance has become achieved the results that we desire as it relates to governance, that has made us to somewhat think that the political parties in this country are not successful. I think they are successful if you would define, if you would agree with Max Weber. So Max Weber says that it's the pursuit of power. So whether it's PDP or APC, at some point these guys have organized themselves, pursued for power or influencing the division of power, and to that extent they've been largely successful. What we often have a problem with is governance, but we tend to sort of confuse governance with politics, right? So a political party was founded. The major reason why they exist, at least one of the major reasons they exist, is to go for power and to capture power. And as long as they achieve that, whatever the means through which they employ, as long as they are able to capture power or influence the division of power, then that political party is successful, right? So that's important. I like us to have that at the back of our mind. The same what Max Weber, reading The Politics of Vocation, he said something that I think, that I personally take very seriously, resonates with me, and that's what you see on your screen. It says, only someone who is certain that it will not break him, when from where he stands, the world looks too stupid or mean for what it wants to offer it, that in spite of everything, that person will be able to say, but still, I can go for it. Only that person has the call for politics. And I think this is very relevant. This is apt for the environment that we live in. Things, when you look around, you ask yourself, where do I want to start from? Can we take a bite at leadership? Can we fix this problem? Can we, in our lifetime, see Nigeria move from being a third world country to first world? In spite of the craziness of the chaotic display of power, if you find one person that says, you know, I still have something to offer this world, I still have something to offer this country, that in spite of everything, there's still something to do. I still believe I can fix this country. That person has got a call for politics. So this is very important because, you know, I heard one of my mentors, or I should say one of my role models, Mr. Ola, who founded GTB. I had the opportunity to sit with him at some point in my life. And I heard him say that you've got to be crazy to go into the world of business, to choose entrepreneurship for, you know, just having a paid employment. He said a lot of times it requires being dogged, being crazy, you know, to jettison a relatively easier life of, you know, you just doing the work and somebody bothers about paying you a salary at the end of the day. But I mean, to jettison that and go for to manage uncertainties, the complexities of the business world and succeed at it, he said you've got to, you know, be crazy to a certain extent. And I think that the same thing applies to politics in Nigeria, particularly if you want to play politics the way God would want you to play it. I hear people talk about politics as dirty. Yeah, it's dirty. But we've got to do it, right? And I will speak to what I think is a useful guide later. So governance, let's speak briefly about governance, just broad definitions. Another very popular sociologist, Francis Fukuyama, defines governance as government's ability to make and enforce rules and to deliver services regardless of whether that government is democratic. So governance is not essentially, you know, democratic, right? If you have a government, whether it's democratic or not, authoritarian, you know, it's not even a republic. It's, you know, as you find in Middle East, where you find that the political head of most of the Middle Eastern countries are kings, you know, are realtors. But as long as that government is able to make and enforce its rules and deliver services, to the extent to which that government is able to do it, you can say whether that government is successful in governance. And I think this struck me the very first time I traveled to Dubai, and I saw the success that country has been able to make out of nothing. Then I was opportune to read a book written by the leader of Dubai, right? Trying to remember the title of the book. It's The Power of My Vision, something like that. Yeah, My Vision. And when I read brilliant thoughts, you know, the lucidity, the ambition of his thoughts, and the results that sort of attended that, you know, belief, despite the fact that it's not a democratic government. Then it started, you know, making sense to me that governance is not necessarily, good governments are not necessarily democratic, right? Even though by a wide margin most of the developed world, particularly when you look at the western part of the Western Hemisphere. A lot of those countries are democratically run, but democracy does not necessarily tell whether you will succeed. And this is very instructive for me because I was in secondary school when democracy started. The Fourth Republic started in 1999. 999. But before then, we had a spell of military rule. In 1993, there was crisis, June 12, and all of that. Then President Babangida left office. Military President Babangida left office. Shonekon was there for 6 months. Then after that, Abdulhamid Abubakar. All through those times, democracy was sold as the silver bullet to solving Nigeria's problems. That once you've got democracy, then all of our problems would automatically disappear. Right? Reminds me also of the Chimamanda Adichie's, I think an article in a book, The Danger of a Single Story. I think she was giving a TEDx talk here, a TEDx talk, and she spoke to the danger of the single story. So at that time, the days of the military, democracy was sold as once you've got democracy, then all of our problems will disappear. Because we have had extensive military rule that has led into economic hardship for citizens, and we looked at the Western world and we thought, once we can sort of have the administrative system through which they are able, through which they deliver the services to people, then automatically our problems will be solved. Of course, now we've been in the Fourth Republic for approaching 24 years now, and the jury is still out on the level of success democracy has. So governance is not essentially the success, the litmus test for effective governance is not tied to the system of government that it runs. It's essentially the ability of the state to make and enforce the rules and to deliver services regardless of the structure of the government. So it's about execution, right? And I like to speak a little bit more about execution. A whole lot of people, a lot of times, even from my experience in government, I've come to realize that it's not often a lack of what to do. A lot of people know what to do, but the challenge often comes in how do you implement, achieve what you know to do. So take, for instance, you could say, subsidy, petroleum subsidy, economic facts, economic, figures that suggest that you should remove subsidy on petroleum products. So that's to know what to do. Well, somebody says, governments, you need to reduce the cost of governance. Yes, you know what to do. But it's not always, it's probably the first or second layer to solving a problem that knowing what to do is just probably the first or second leg to solve the problem. There's a higher level, and that is how to do what you know to do. And it comes in execution. So the success of a democratic governance is essentially tied to execution. It's about the performance of agents in carrying out the wishes of their principals. Again, who are the principals? Do the political class consider the principals to be the head of the government, or they consider the principals to be those who voted them into office? So governance is about execution, right? Now comparing politics and governance, you would see that the political parties in Nigeria, at least as far as Fourth Republic is concerned, at the national level, we have two political parties. The PDP ruled governed for 16 years. The APC is about to complete 8 years. To the extent that which, have they been successful as political parties? Largely, yes, they've been successful after because they've been able to organize themselves to go for power. But governance starts after, how do I put it? Governance does not start before politics, right? Governance starts after you have seized power because politics puts you in a position to be able to direct how the rules are made and to enforce such rules and to deliver the services, right? So most times when people think about political parties in Nigeria, they think about governance. But first of all, the political parties are successful to the extent that they've been able to seize power. Then we can now talk about governance, where the results have shown that the political parties have largely failed. Right? It comes to execution. Now, people like professionals, intellectuals, like to speak a lot about governance. There's nothing bad about it. But we must understand that you've got to capture power first before you can govern. All right. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. There's a lot to say to that. So I'll just move to my next slide. I have one more slide after this. Let me give you a useful guide. First is that you've got to recognize a need and accept the challenge of leadership. See, there's so much. Everything in this country today suggests there is a need for capable leadership. When you drive around and you see pothole reading roads, that's a need, right? Or you talk about the biting inflation of the last couple of years, that's a need. Or even the debacle arising from the new currency policy, that's a need, right? But a lot of people see the problem, they don't recognize the problem as a need, and they've not accepted the challenge of leadership. So each time you see a bad road, Nigeria is essentially calling on to you to fix it. This job is not something we have to leave for others. You can't leave for others the job that you're eminently qualified to do yourself. And again, it's about, you can ask yourself, I don't have the resources, I don't have the means, who am I? There's so much entrenched interest. How do I come against this entrenched interest? Those who've been in this game for years, how do I go? The first thing is recognize the need and accept the challenge of leadership and say, I accept this challenge. And this thread runs through anything you want to do in life. I remember at some point when I was younger, I'd always wanted to do big stuff. And sometimes I get overwhelmed by the thoughts, by the desires, and I just say to myself, the first step is to accept the challenge of leadership. Say, I'm a Christian, so I'll say to God, I'm here today. I don't know how to do this thing, but I accept this challenge, and I trust you to figure out for me, to lead me as to how to go about this. But you've got to accept it. So you've got to accept it. Faith is not denial, right? Faith is not saying that the problems are not there. Faith is not saying that these challenges are not there. But faith is saying, in spite of these challenges, I believe that God has created me in this country for a reason, for a purpose, and God is a just God. I do not consider myself disadvantaged because I'm from Nigeria. No, God will be an unfair God if my success in life is tied to the location that I was born or the kind of parents that I have. God will be an unfair God, because if those things are what ultimately decides success, then God is unfair to start with. In other words, if I think being born in Buckingham Palace proves that I would gives me an advantage over someone that was born at the backside of the desert in Petiscom, Yobe, then I still need to understand, I still need to do some study, more study on purpose, because God is not unfair. For him to have put you here, there's a reason. And once you recognize the reason, all you first have to do is to accept and say, God, I'm here. God, this country is in a big mess, but I accept the challenge to fix it. Now, once you've accepted that challenge, you now have to walk, right? Walk, W-A-L-K, walk from the end to the point you are. Now you know you will be this. Now you know you are going to be a leader in this respect. Then what are the things that are required to succeed? Because you don't just want to be a leader that feels. Many years ago, I was meditating. I was still an undergraduate, and a thought dropped in my mind, and I was like, Ayokunnu, don't just desire to be a CEO of a bank. That shouldn't be your desire. Don't just desire to be a governor of a state. First of all, think about what you would do, what that office must at best be a tool to achieving other things. So I want to fix this country. I want to make impact in this country. Then I need political leader. I need the politics as a tool to making that impact. And this is very, very important because people, how do I put this? People underestimate what is required to succeed. Success isn't a child's play. There's an art, ART to success, and there's a science of success. Now, I don't want to be, let's just speak broadly. I mean, this up definitely is going to be, what's the word? It's going to be, I can't remember that in English. It's going to be, essentially, it's a very popular word. It's a very common word, rather. It's going to be controversial. Yeah, it's going to be controversial. So when you look at the Western democracies all over the world, or even the major democracies, you tend to see that the most successful parties by a large stretch are the largest parties, right? To think that, there are a few instances where small political parties have won. Case in point, in France, the current president, Macron, essentially founded a party 2 years before he got into office, and they won, right? They won the election. A 38-year-old guy won the election and became president. But when you look at 200 years of history in France, you would see that this is more like an aberration. 6-7 years ago, an unusual winner won the English Premier League. And our political party, I'm trying to remember the name of that club. The coach is the current, please, if you know the club, please tell me. The coach is was former coach of Liverpool and I think Rangers. They wear blue jersey. Jamie Vardy is a member of plays for that club. Yes, thank you. Leicester. So Leicester City won the league, right? But the bookmakers gave Leicester City 5,000. That the odds that Leicester City was going to win the league was 1 to 5,000. But of course, Leicester City won that league. But now but it is more of an exception to find Leicester City win that league. Oftentimes, in most of history, you find that the bigger clubs that spend more of the money, that organize themselves better, have more chances to win. So do not estimate the level of effort, because if you underestimate the level of effort, you are likely going to lose out in formation, in forming and organizing yourself for success. Because you just think, I was in a meeting this morning and the person speaking said, you've got to, if you want your any program, anything you do to succeed, you have to give it time, right? If you take, for instance, you want to organize a program, you don't just wake up today and say you want to organize a program that will be successful, that will be impactful in 2 weeks. Why? Because you really need time to plan, to prepare for that program. So somebody that spends 1 year to plan for that program is more likely to succeed than somebody who just woke up 2 weeks, right? But if somebody does not know the art, the ART of success, how success has been achieved, he might underestimate what is required and you just wake up 2 weeks and say, you know what, I want to organize a program like this. Like what the organizer Valley Dream would say wake up 2 weeks. You are not likely to succeed because you would have to reach out to the facilitators. You've got to do a lot of things that will account for the success. So don't underestimate the effort. Don't be like a football. Don't be like spectators. Spectators underestimate the level of effort. They tell the coach, why will you do this? Why did you make this wrong substitution? They are not in the game, but they think they know more than the coach. All right? So don't assume, Avoid the superiority complex. And I see this happen a lot among the intellectuals. I mean, without throwing a jab, there have been a lot of polling suggesting how the next election, how the coming election would go. And so there was one that was released by Bloomberg. Bloomberg, yes, I think 2 days ago, yesterday I said Bloomberg is by far a very recognized international organization. And they released a poll saying a political party was going to win. But while I was reading how they arrived at that poll, I realized that they polled less than 3,000 people in a country of 200 million people. And the 3,000 people that they reached out to them through, like, the polling was through smartphones. So that again suggests that, and I'm speaking about know your customer, that suggests that, they probably don't know the customer in this sense. They probably don't know the citizen, because if they only know the citizen, they would understand that the vast majority of the citizens in this country don't have a smartphone. Avoid the superiority complex. Don't think because you're intellectual, because you find a politician who speaks stupid English, who didn't go to school, that you know more than yes, you may know more than a politician in terms of governance, assuming you have even proven to succeed in governance because you've not governed. But let's even assume that you know better than governance. But in this game of capturing power, you should be intellectually humble to say that, these guys, I may not like their style, I may not like their method, but to some extent, these guys are succeeding at what they're doing. Can I look and learn and say, you know what can I do? What is the main principle that these guys have recognized that they're using, and see how I can tweak it in a way that it aligns with my conscience, with the direction I want to take this country to. But it would be a wrong approach to throw the baby with the bathwater, as it is in most times where people talk about. The other day, there's a politician in Southwest Nigeria that came up with stomach infrastructure, right? And the intellectuals abused them and said, stomach infrastructure, is this what we need? But this stomach infrastructure style won into electoral victories, right? So avoid the superiority complex. The Bible says, I'm a Christian, so the Bible says, learn from the ants. There's no one you can learn from, right? I need to quickly move to the last slide now, so that there'll be more room for questions. Once you've accepted the challenge of leadership, you keep investing in yourself, read books, read articles, have mentors who are in the game, devour as much as possible, invest in yourself. Something is likely going to kick in, and that's the law of recognition. And there's no better way to explain this than this, analogy I would give. Let's imagine you want to buy a red Range Rover, right? That's the car that you want to have. That's your dream car, right? The moment you accept and say to yourself, you know what, I love this car, I want to get this car. Or let's even go a step further. You have gotten that car. Now that car is now yours. 2023 Range Rover, red Range Rover. You have it in your garage. You know, once you drive out of your garage, you begin to see more red Range Rovers than you ever thought were in the city of Lagos or Abuja or wherever you are. Why? Because now you have that car parked in your garage. It has set up, it has, kicked in the law of recognition. Because you have the car, you now see more of it. It's not like it was when you acquired the car that other people have acquired it. It's just that now you have identified with the car, you begin to see more of those cars. So the first thing also, once you've recognized and accepted the burden of leadership, you've invested in yourself, law of recognition would come in, opportunities would come that you would be able to latch on to. Let me just speak about my story. So I work in the office of the vice president today, and I've been doing this for 5 years, running to 6. I didn't know anybody, and it came through my head, and I won't bore you with the story because of time. I was driving with a younger colleague. For some of you, I used to work with a global Fortune 500, building data centers for telcos. Spent some good time managing MTN's data, and did a few outside of the country as well. So I was speaking with a younger colleague, and I wanted to get a new phone in Sakatinubu in Lagos. So I just was chatting with him in the car, like, what project did you work on? And the guy said, I worked on, final year projects. My final year project was, building a complaint software for students in a school. And it just occurred to me that Nigeria could have something like this, right? So I started developing this. This was 2016. Sometimes I would just go to pray, or I would just get this gentle nudge, take this thing seriously. Anyways, I attend the Covenant Nation. Those of you who know the church pastor by Pastor Banji. So there was a platform in May 2017, and the vice president came to speak at that event. And 39 minutes into his speech, he said they were going to organize a competition to get, a hackathon to get a suitable software that it can use to get feedback from people in the country. 39 minutes into that speech, I heard this. The only reason I could hear it was because I had started working on something like that. If I'd not been working on something like that, it would just come as a normal speech that the vice president would give. So I heard that speech and I'm like, I've been working on this thing. Perhaps this is an opportunity. So I kept following the news until one day online, I just saw that they had announced the hackathon. Of course, I applied. And now a chain of events happened, and today I'm here. One of the things I do right now is also to, anyways, don't let me bore you with that. So law of recognition kicked in because I was preparing, investing in myself. An opportunity came. I was able to recognize that opportunity. If I had not been preparing, if I had not accepted the challenge of leadership, I would not have recognized that opportunity. So for some of you asking, how would I get involved? The question is, don't start with that. Start with accepting the challenge of leadership. The Nigerian needs me. I've got to fix this country. God has endowed me with abilities, and through His help, I'll be able to make this country great. Then start investing in yourself as though you say, for instance, you want to be a governor. Start investing in yourself as though you're already a governor. Then you will see that most likely the law of recognition will come, an opportunity will come your way. And when that opportunity comes, my last point, don't self-sabotage. I've heard young people, especially on Twitter, say, election is so expensive in Nigeria. When the political parties were selling the participation form for primaries, I need to round off in 2 minutes, very difficult task. When they were selling the the form for participation. One political party said 100 million for president, another said 50 million. People say that money is too much, that money is too much, that money is too much. When people think that way, what they're doing is that they are self-sabotaging themselves. What they are doing without knowing is saying that I do not have the capacity to raise this money. So bring the money down. But you see, politics is expensive everywhere in the world. The last American election, each of them, the two major political parties spent at least $1 billion each for presidential election. There's a billboard in Abuja along the express, along Airport Road. I know it costs 25 million naira to put an advert on that billboard every month. Politics is expensive. Don't self-sabotage yourself that, we cannot get there because we don't have the money. Say, accept the challenge of leadership, and God will know how to bring the men, the materials, the resources your way. The land you are going to go, as I round up, the land that you are going to go, God spoke to Moses in Deuteronomy 7. Apologies if you're a Muslim. This is what I know, and I can't often speak about it without going to the stories. So the children of Israel were going to take on a land, and God said, this land I'm going to give you, this land is full of giants. And he listed those giants. He said the Gigasites, the Ezites, he just mentioned it. He said, but go get the land. The land you're going to get, this dream of running this country, it's not going to be served to you a la carte. You've got to go for it. There will be giants in that land. But that's the nature of success. You've got to take on the giants. You've got to be like a David against Goliath. You've just got to go for it. Right? Don't self-sabotage by yourself and say, I cannot fight this giant because I don't have money. I don't have the right education. I don't have the right network. No, 1,000 times no. Don't sound that way. A lot of people are not in politics today because they ask themselves, or tell themselves, I cannot do this. Where will I get the money from? I'll give an example. My principal, who is the vice president, of course, in 2015 when he ran for elections, if it was down to his wealth or to his how much money he had, he wouldn't have been the vice president today. Sometimes when God says it's your time, He brings the people, the network, the association your way that will raise that money to you. Quit thinking about how. Don't self-sabotage yourself. Don't underestimate the level required to succeed. Go for it, and it will happen. There's so much to say on politics and governance, but I have to stop at this point so that I can allow questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ayokunnu. I think we just take one or two questions, and then we'll be good. Yeah. So, anybody with questions? Okay. So I'll ask maybe one or two questions because we have some other speakers as well. So, what were the toughest career decisions that you had to make, and how did you stem the tide?
Yeah, leaving a global Fortune 500 company to working for government in Nigeria was crazy. my colleagues thought, at that time I was managing, of course, like I said, I was managing MTN's data. At that time, I knew who you are calling, where you are calling from, as long as you're an MTN subscriber. I was working with another telco in Nigeria. I was having the best of my life, traveling, all expense paid, sleeping in the best hotels in the world. But when I clocked 30, that was, 78 years ago, I asked myself, what was I doing about this country? Was I ready to put my money where my mouth was, or where my mouth is? And when this opportunity came, I took it. Guess what? I worked 7 months before I earned my first pay in this role. Yeah. As a matter of fact, 6 months into that role, SAS, the world's leader in business analytics, came calling and gave me an offer that was difficult to refuse. of course, the reason why I'm still what I'm doing today is because I didn't take that
Very
offer.
pleased. Yeah.
So it was tough, but I've looked back and I've had the greatest pleasure not taking that offer. My social networks, because I want to someday run for office. I don't know the office yet, right? But I thought I needed to understand this game. I've not done much in politics at the moment, but in governance, worked with state governments. I project management project, 750 million World Bank sponsored project for states as part of things that I do. And I provide technical assistance to 36 states of the federation. So my social network has improved. I know commissioners in Zamfara, in Sokoto, in strange places, right? So I look back and I'm grateful that I was able to make that decision. It was tough, but I look back with no regrets, and I'm grateful that I had the strength to make that kind of decision.
Thank you. And this is the last question. What is the next level for you? Where are you looking at? After government, what is next?
To be honest, I don't know yet, and it's okay not to know yet. I'm thinking about it, praying as well, because again, I'm not a typical politician, so I have good options. Go back to school, go for NPP in some Ivy League school, go to another, Fortune 500, right? Also continue in public sector. But one thing I know is that I would still be in this space, around this space. Post-election, I want to get more involved in politics, understand more of the game, because that is important for what we need to do as a country. Learn from the people that we typically won't want to learn from, because we don't believe in their values, we don't believe in them, but they've certainly got something to teach us, to offer. And that's what we need to get. Why will,
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ayokunnu. It was such a great one, a rich one as well. We're super glad of what you're doing. Thank you for representing the kingdom in that place. And we're looking forward to the next great thing God will do through you. Thank you again. So guys, would you mind if we share your LinkedIn profile with them so they can connect with you? Yeah. Okay, you want to share it?
Yeah, I'm actually typing.
Oh, great.
So yes, so my full name Ayokunnu Ojeniyi on LinkedIn, okay. And IG, that's my IG.
All right,
and
that's good.
Send me an email. Let me just type that now.
Okay, great. So guys, that's an opportunity for you to connect with Ayokunnu, to connect with the VP effectively. So thanks for coming. We'll be having greater of you, and then we're bringing you, now that we have established this relationship, Valley Dreams will not leave you alone.
Thank you. I look forward to it in the future. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, bye. Cheers. Yeah. All right, so the next speaker is Olaluwe Abiodun. So he was supposed to come up earlier. I think time difference, time zone thingy. So he's going to talk very quickly before we have Ola Brown. So let's say 20-minute marks so that we can have Ola Brown. So it's going to talk to us about military tech. So for those of you who are interested in that space, like, what is happening in military tech? What exactly is happening in cyber operations of the US? When we hear that the cyber whatever between US and Russia, US and China, these are the guys doing all the judos. All right, so Mr. Olaluwe, you can put on your camera and you can unmute. I think that yes, that's you, yeah. And I will share your slide from here like you shared with me. All right, so over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also like to thank Ayo for, I think he has done you can see my first point on the slide is governance. So I think he's done a good job, talking about that point. But I'm just going to come from the angle of, military tech, in that space when I get to that point. So, okay, you can share the slide now.
All right, so doing that in a bit. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, so hold on, let me put my, okay, so yeah, thank you everyone, and good afternoon. So I'm glad, to connect with you all today and to connect with Okpe because it's been a while. We're classmates in Ife, and I haven't been this way for a while, and I haven't read so much about America even before I got here. At least I can speak to this topic a little bit. Nigeria want to actually play in military tech, and what they need to do. And I like I said earlier, I appreciate the last speaker a lot because he talked to governance a little bit. I'm just going to come up a little bit in the tech space and what I think they should do in tech, invoking tech, with governance. Can you next slide, please? Yeah, so like I said, so the last speakers, spoke a great deal about this topic, because one thing, you have to remember is that there's little the people can do if the people in power will not take the lead. I'm telling you, in all climes, in all society, in every single society. Sorry. So in every single society, the government has to take the lead. I'm telling you. So don't let people fool you that people start doing something. Yes, I know it's very easy to begin to talk about what JFK said, back in 1969, that don't ask America what America can do for you. Ask yourself what it can do for America. But the fact is that America already did a very good groundwork. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about how America was founded. See, these guys who moved from the UK to this place, they were Christians. Yes, although they said they were looking for religious liberty to be able to practice their religion unhindered, and not all of them supported slavery actually, but the number of people who support slavery were more than those who didn't support it. So that's why slavery thrived a little, for a long time before they eventually aborted it. But one thing they did that was, that's the bedrock of what America is enjoying today. That's the bedrock of what everybody all over the world is. The main reason why everybody all over the world is trooping to this place is because they founded this country on some principle, which they wrote down. The Declaration of Independence. They were deliberate about what they did. And I think it can only be God who inspired those thoughts in them. That all men, we reckon this truth to be true, that all men are born equal. How can someone just sit down and be writing those kind of things down, except that God, except that God inspired them to write it down, and they all signed it. So those principles, they laid it down. So the people who started governance in this country, in America, they laid that foundation. Sorry, I want to check my timer. They laid that foundation to ensure that whoever is going to come after them, it will be very difficult for an autocratic government to just rise up and depose the entire thing. You can all see when Trump tried to come and destabilize the whole thing. It's because the founding father did a good job. That's why he couldn't do anything. That's why the law actually incapacitated. The law kind of break his back, because because he was trying to use the law unlawfully. So that's why he couldn't go anywhere. So the law always wins. So I believe if the governance can be done such that the law always wins, then I can assure you that things will begin to get in place. And if you go back to what JFK said that time, you can see that it may be said that time, a lot of people start coming up. Government began to put their money where their mouth is, because they knew they had a plan. So they begin to put money where it matters. In academic institutions, they began to sponsor programs. They began to sponsor organizations like companies like Intel that make microchips. They began to fund all these companies. The government began to give them contracts. So and they start employing people, and they began to develop military technology. that you can, the likes that, you know, even the likes of Russia and China, they are still envying up to today. Although, yes, they are growing rapidly too, but it's very difficult to replicate what America has done. I'm telling you that. So I may not tell you, I may not tell you specifics, but I'm telling you, but I'm going to mention some that you can actually read on Wikipedia and likes. But I'm telling you, to replicate what this country has done in military tech space is, I think the government has to take the lead at first. Let me just put it like that's why I put this point there. So and another thing that, because the government is the leader, is the lens through which we judge every other thing, is the lens through which we look at every other thing that is happening in the country. If the governance is bad, if the government is not doing anything good, then people will be like that country or that climb cannot amount to anything. Another thing governance can affect also is, you know, human capital. I'm telling you, that's key. That's key. The way it is now, Nigeria as a country is they're not treating their greatest resource properly. They are not treating, the people are being treated like as if they are trash. And in the same climb, if you do that, there's no way you can actually advance in technology-wise. There's no way you can advance. Like, you know, lecturers went on strike for so long, you know, they didn't even listen to them. I don't know, maybe you guys know more than I do because I don't actually read much of Nigerian news, but at least once in a while, you know, people tell me things about what is happening back home. But one I want to tell you that when the time comes and there's someone gets into power that will choose to prioritize human capital, I'm telling you, things begin to change. And right now, I have friends, even in Nigeria, that are doing excellently well. Someone like Ayo is one of them. They are doing greatly well. And I have friends who have organizations, they have companies who are developing, you know, softwares, you know, for organizations. Even Google went back home. Some of my friends, Google actually invested in their company, and they are in Nigeria. So imagine if we were to be government that actually invested in them. That means some of the things they produce, you know, they can actually make use of it. So, you know, the moment governance is done right, I believe that, you know, things will begin to take the right turn. Please, next slide. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes, don't worry. So once governance is done right, then, okay, we can begin to, like, you know, talk about defense. So in all these countries that I mentioned, you know, don't even talk about, you know, the big wigs like US and China and likes of them. Talk about even countries like maybe Germany. Germany is also one of the, you know, top countries in the world, actually. Well, you know, every country that want to command the respect of other countries have to invest heavily in the defense of their homeland. You have to protect your homeland. Why do you think America, you know, 2022, why would you think why would they budget $715 billion? Just a few billion dollars shy of $1 trillion for defense alone. So I'm not saying Nigeria should jump to that wagon yet, but I'm saying they can start somewhere. You don't get to this space, like I said earlier, you don't get to this level of allocating this kind of money for defense, you know, but you have to start somewhere. I'm going to get to those points. The key, you know, strategic partnership that government needs to work on, you know, work with in order to be able to achieve, you know, to be able to play very well in the defense space. So, like you can see, so also China and Russia. So you can actually go to those Wikipedia link and read these figures I put here. So, you know, defense has to be priority, you know. And what do you think of majority of this money will go to? It will go to companies that are working with defense to develop the appropriate technologies. It will go to academic organizations. Even myself, I'm working on my PhD. I actually applied for a defense, like let's say, I would say contract, because, you know, they're going to sponsor my research. So, you know, so the fact that, see, government they make money available that organizations who are in technology, even not even in technology, some are in services, in academics, they'll come and apply for all these grants, to do certain things that will benefit. First and foremost, they will identify areas they are working on that will benefit the government or that will benefit defense. Then they can apply for these funds. And they will look at the government, they have a panel of people that will sit down and look at all the proposals. And they say, okay, yeah, we reckon this proposal will be very good, be very useful for us. Then they fund it. Okay, we'll give you $50,000 to go pursue this. And they'll be expecting you to give them feedback on how it's going. Some people even get as much as like $100 million. Some people get billions of dollars in funds for their organization, for their institution. Now, institution like Stanford, Harvard, and all those Ivy League schools, they get a huge chunk of this money. It may not be like half of it. I'm saying like huge chunk, like maybe it could be like $10 billion, for instance, because of the kind of research they involve in with defense. So some people actually go to the extent of even actually like, the kind of, they call it the protective headgear that military personnel wear in combat. Some schools actually research into that. And they came up with materials, and government funded that research. So that this kind of money that I put here, that's where those kind of money will go to. So the moment the government in Nigeria decide to start funding research in the academic institution, I'm telling you, don't say, oh, Nigerian professors don't do research. It's a lie. I have friends in Ife who graduated together and they are doing research. I can see what they are doing. If they have the right money, if they have the right sponsorship by the government. So that's what they can do for Nigeria. That's what GFK meant when he said, ask yourself what you can do for America. So the people back then realized what they can do for this country, and government funded their research. So I know there are a lot of people in Nigeria who have great ideas of how to push things forward. Someone was telling me about a guy who was in charge of because in National Open University runs like for the most part, like virtually, or they have most of their stuff like software hosted, online. So they was telling me about the guy who is in charge of the software and everything, and how that place is running smoothly. How the software and everything is running smoothly. They try to depose him, but things started running away again. Then they have to bring him back so that it can, have to automate everything for them. But what I'm saying is that there are people with great ideas in Nigeria. All that needs to be done is for government to allocate funds for research, to allocate funds for services, to allocate funds for special projects that people who have great mindset, who have great ideas, can actually tap into and begin to come up, to begin to do things that will benefit the defense industry. Yes, another means is what they are pushing now is to go and buy the technology outside. Any country, any territorial entity that wants to advance, that want to prosper its people, that want to prosper itself, cannot continue to outsource their defense. It will not work. You should be making your weapons yourself, making your gun at least yourself. You want to tell me there are people in Nigeria that cannot make, you don't think it's only Chakabula that Nigerians can make? So no, I believe that there are people with great ideas. All they need is that enabling hand to be able to execute those ideas effectively. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so I said earlier that there are some strategic partnerships and alliances that that a country, a nation that wants to. Can you go back a little? Can you go one slide? Okay, yeah, that one. Strategic alliance and strategic partnership. So, as I said it before, like no nation can actually develop beyond the kind of investment they make in their people. I said that one before. So now I said that, see, here in this country, in America, they build everything they do. Like, why would they budget 750 billion US dollars for defense? Because they have people with great ideas that will come, that will bring, that have packaged very good service. Like, some people are the one making the uniform that defense people wear. So some people are the ones developing technology for the material that they will use to make the wares. I'm telling you. So those are the ways that the money is going to. So the money is not just sitting there, or some people are just siphoning it for their own selfish reasons. So for the government cannot remain an island forever, because the way I see the Nigerian government running right now is because it's like they are working like an island. They don't intermingle with private partnership. Here, government is always private, working with private individuals, organizations that could come up with, that will collaborate with them to innovate in the defense space. So number one thing is to build a people-central program. Like, okay, there are people, for instance, that, okay, if you get to any military base, for instance, you see that everything, like, if you go to all these grocery shop and everything, the people within the base, yeah, they can choose to go to outside the base to go and buy stuff, but everything they need is within that place. It's like a city on its own. No matter how small that base is, it's like a city on its own. So tell me, so there are people that are working in all those bases too. So, that is kind of, government puts something, an establishment, like a military base, boom, and they invited people. They give them, okay, oh, these are lands. They even build those structures. All they just need to do is to bring their wares and start selling. So that is a people-central mindset. And like I said, there are organizations that are involved in services. Like, all they do is, okay, we'll help government to make their they do research on operational technology. They do research on how to make the service, because government, whether you like it or not, they are also rendering services to service members, to their families, and the likes of it. So there are people actually, researching into how to make those services fast, or how to make the line go faster. And when they get to the pharmacy, how to make the line go faster when patients visit the hospital, military hospitals. So government they make this thing available so that people can actually tap into, and they'll collect money. Of course, the government will pay them for that service they are rendering. So they are not just working for fun. So that way, it's also tied to the prioritizing human capital, because government knows, they realize that they cannot do this alone. Even if they are going to war today, they will still bring most of these people along, like all these individuals, like just ordinary people, ordinary entity, not soldiers. They will still have to go with them, because they still need to provide services to people who will be in the war front. So they have doctors, but they see higher doctors from outside, that will still that will come and work with them on part-time basis. Then, like I said earlier, they also partnership. There's a partnership with. They also partner with organizations, technology organizations, like of Google, Amazon. Yeah, please give me like 2 more minutes. I think I'm also actually at the end. So they partner with all these technology organizations that you hear about in Nigeria. The government partner with them. I'm telling you, maybe you was in the news. Government also want to give out a contract for cloud services. Microsoft and Amazon were fighting for that contract, but they eventually, because of lawsuit, they eventually have to split the contract between the two of them. So, and then another thing is that they have to fund the academics. I'm telling you, education is still the bedrock. I'm telling you, if they will not fund education, I don't think they are ready to go anywhere. Nigeria is ready to go anywhere. They have to fund education. If they begin to fund education appropriately, I believe that those lecturers, you'll be surprised, you'll be amazed by the kind of research they'll be bringing out that will be useful in the defense space. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can now welcome your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, sir. That was so powerful. So it was so rich. Would you mind if we share your LinkedIn with them?
Yes, I already typed it out. I will share now. So
all right, that's great. That's great. So we'll connect with you, and if we have questions as well, we'll engage with you better.
Okay.
Thank you so much. That was so powerful. Thank you so much, Mr. Olaluwe. Well done. Yeah. So thank you. Yes. So the next speaker is Dr. Ola Brown MFR. I don't know if she's on the call yet. Because is she on the call? Okay, so while Ngozi is helping us to get Dr. Ola Brown, so our quiz, the last quiz of the day is ready. So let's take the quiz. Even how I'm tired, I want to quickly have Dr. Ola Brown and go. But yes, so let's take the last quiz, and then while we wait for Dr. Ola Brown, it's going to be very short. Are you ready? So you go and type www.kahoot.it, and then you enter the PIN 9757472. So and then you put your phone number as your username. Put your phone number as your username, and then we're good. Let's do that very quickly. If you are not participating in the game, it means that you are ghosting us. It means that you have left the seat. Let's do it very quickly while we wait for Dr. Ola Brown MFR. Oh, great. Are you ready? Ja, you should edit your name to your phone number so we're good. So we can, okay, so let's start. 1, 2, go. Some of the questions are very funny though, and you will see why. You see why now, right? Look at you, everybody thinks it's Obi, then Kwakwansho, and then Tinubu. Atiku did not get any. Okay. All of you are obedient, have you? Okay, so let's go to the next. No score for that, so you are not getting any score for that. That was just a poll, as it were. But this one has score. Oh, really? Okay, we're good. I guess Dr. Ola Brown is on the call already. So but let's finish this game. Okay. Some people even miss the full meaning of NYC. Who are those? The name of the first speaker that spoke today. Okay. So who are the winners? Oh, third. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
They have taxed
Okay.
Labour Party.
What did you say?
Lagos.
Okay. So I leave you in the hands of Ngozi and Dr. Ola Brown. Thank you. So this is the last session for the day. Yeah. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Okwe. I think we have Dr. Ola Brown in the building. It's been a great evening. This is our last speaker, but definitely not the least. A personal inspiration to me. She has lived all the things that we've learned today: hard work, looking for opportunities and taking advantage of the opportunities that you find, and a very fine interplay between health, tech, and finance. I think it'd be very interesting. Please let's all listen and drop your questions in the chat as we go ahead. Over to you, Dr. Brown. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Ngozi. Thank you for inviting me. Really controversial topic, or controversial sounding topic at least. What I'm going to say probably isn't controversial at all. But I wanted to choose an interesting topic because I knew I was the last speaker and I wanted to wake everybody up. So my topic is how to win in life if your father is not Femi Otedola. And I basically wrote an article with this same title on my Medium. I'll post the link during the Q&A. But I just thought that it was an interesting topic because a lot of people ask me, how do you grow a career without relationships? How do you grow a career without, some family influence, particularly in a country like Nigeria, where that's very important? And I wanted to put together some of the thoughts and research around this topic, because I know that there's a lot of young people on this call wondering, what does success really mean for me, and how do I become successful in life? And I'd like to start by saying, because we're on the subject of Femi Otedola, before I go any further, winning in life and success is different for different people. And for some people, winning in life is having healthy children. For some people, winning in life is seeing as many countries on earth as they possibly can. For some people, winning in life is, just having a civil service job in Abuja, working in customs and doing their work diligently and making the country better in their own quiet way. Some people winning in life is working for a big charity. Some people winning in life is actually, doing a lot of voluntary work for their church. So success and money are not directly proportional. Happiness and money are not directly proportional. And there's probably, after a certain income level, a very, very sort of little difference in the amount of additional money compared to happiness. So money and happiness do have a relationship. I'll not say that, you wouldn't be happier if you had a bit more money, but I'm saying that relationship isn't direct. And there's a big difference in net worth between Femi Otedola here and somebody like Dangote, for instance, in terms of the actual money that they have, in terms of the actual net worth. But I'm sure there might be a lot of people on this webinar that actually prefer Femi Otedola's lifestyle. So money and happiness aren't directly related. Even though I'm going to be talking about how to make more money and career in this talk a lot, I just wanted to put it out there that you really, really have to think about happiness in more terms than money, even though I'm going to be talking about career and making more money. So a bit about me before we begin. My name is Ola, and I founded the Flying Doctors Nigeria, which is an air ambulance service that operates in 47 or has operated in 47 out of 54 African countries, received over 5,000 emergency requests, has flown to over 100 cities around the world. And currently I work in financial services. I run something called Healthcap, which is an investment company focused on venture capital and infrastructure asset classes. So the VC actually invests in health tech and FinTech, and we have a portfolio of over 30 portfolio companies in those two sectors. And the infrastructure actually focuses on what I like to call investments that create a healthier world. So clean energy, clean water, and healthcare itself. My first degree was in medicine. I didn't really like practicing clinical medicine, so then I did a master's in finance and currently about to start my PhD in finance and economics. So that's me in a nutshell. So let's go on to the bad news first before I give you the good news. The bad news is that Tenny lied to us. And I'll be explaining why. But that line about you still being able to be okay if you don't have rich parents isn't actually completely true, and I'll explain why. There was a study at Princeton University, one of the best universities in the world. Researchers John Darley and Gross performed an experiment where students were divided up into two groups, and one group was shown, so both groups were actually shown the same person, a 9-year-old girl called Hannah. One showed her growing up in a poor environment. So they divided them into two rooms. Let's just call them room 1 or room 2. And the students in room 2 were shown Hannah, the same girl, growing up in a very poor environment, horrible house, horrible clothing, etc. And the people that they put in room 2, they showed that same Hannah growing up in a very wealthy environment. Then they brought those two groups of students back into the same room. And they showed the video of that same girl being interviewed about maths, science, and general knowledge. And then they asked those students to write down what they thought. Now, the people that had watched her growing up rich actually rated her as more sociable, more intelligent, and more articulate than the people that thought that she grew up poor, because that was the video that she watched. That was the video that they watched. So this experiment shows that the very thoughts that somebody grew up poor makes most people view them as just less intelligent and less capable. There's this quote from The Economist. Again, you can Google this. It says the easiest way to be successful and wealthy in life is to be born to the right parents. And if you look at the data from even a country like America, the American dream is this idea that you can move to America and become rich. But actually, when you look at social mobility is the ability of a person to move from poor to rich. You'll find out that actually America has a far lower level of social mobility than even its own citizens believe. So in the US, 50% of children from the highest income families get a university degree, but only 7% from the lowest income families get a university degree. And Nigeria, unsurprisingly, also has similar low levels of social mobility that has not improved since 1960, the year that we got independence. And there was a World Bank study, I think from 2018, that showed that in Nigeria, sons could expect to make 60 to 70% less than their friends if their father earns half of their friend's income. So your income is really almost directly tied to what your father or your parents earned. The countries where social mobility is the highest, so where you're most likely to move from poor to rich. So countries where you can be born into a rich family, born into a poor family and actually end up wealthier, are actually Nordic countries that actually nobody really wants to move to. Norway, Sweden, Denmark. So basically you are far more likely to live the American dream in Norway than in America. So I've given you the bad news and I'm now going to give some good news, particularly for people that live closer to Surulere than to Sweden. What do you do to change the odds? You can't give up. What do you do to try and make career success a reality for you? Bearing in mind what I said at the beginning, that there are so many things that give meaning to life, not just money and not just career. And it's important to bring those all together when you're making your decisions. So I think since you're post-NYSC, this might not be as useful, but I always tell people to try and get into a tier 1 Nigerian university. So uni like Ibadan, universities with big brands tend to give you better networks. And the second one might surprise you, but I say don't follow your passion. A lot of the people, particularly motivational speakers that tell you to follow your passion, are people that did not follow their passion. So Dangote, for instance, I don't know if he's ever said this because I don't actually hear him doing many motivational speeches, but he sells cement and pasta. Like that's not something that somebody can really be passionate about, right? Most of the people that tell you to follow your passion, they sell PMS, they sell crude oil, they sell cement, they sell plastic bottles. Like they're not really following their passion. I don't know why billionaires say follow your passion. It's not true. I think that you need to follow something where there's actually an obvious route to financial success. And you need to balance that with what you can do without feeling sad. So a lot of the things I do in my day-to-day life, I'm actually not passionate about. I run a company and yeah, part of the things that I'm passionate about, but probably 70% of the stuff that I do every day is actually really, really boring. And yeah, the end result probably in a few years might be something that I could be passionate about, but I think that young people get told to follow their passion. And I think it's even easier for somebody from a rich home to follow their passion because they always have like this financial safety net. So even if they want to go and become an archaeologist in Guinea-Bissau, and that's their passion, at least their parents' money can carry them there and they can go and be doing archaeology for 5 years and the years are wasted and nobody really cares because they're getting a salary from their parents and everything is fine. I don't think necessarily follow your passion is good advice. In fact, I think it's terrible advice. I think it's more practical to follow what you can do, but also what you can get paid for, what you do well, and what you won't be too sad doing. But definitely, I think follow your passion without context is actually really, really bad advice. I would say the third thing is, obviously, most of the people that have spoken there, at least Ngozi and Banji that I know, work in financial services. And financial services are, in terms of an industry, is probably the greatest route to wealth and career success that you can find. There's a reason why a Tony Elumelu, for instance, and I'll use my former profession because I can make fun of them, makes more than the owner of Reddington Hospital. It's not because the owner of the hospital is less hardworking, it's because Tony works in a better industry. I can remember like somebody, one of the doctors that I knew very well, he was running his hospital. His hospital was in Iwari. And the hospital never really made him financially successful. And people were saying, you know, it's because doctors don't understand business. It's because doctors don't understand banking. You know, you need to go for some courses to understand banking. Thankfully, under a different administration, he got an oil block. This was a doctor. He became a billionaire immediately. Because there are just some industries where there's money and there's some industries where there's no money. So I think, you know, making a decision to take, no matter what you studied, working in financial services will just give you a better income than working in most industries. Working in oil and gas would just give you a better income than working in most other industries. So I think follow your passion, but don't follow your passion. Follow what can get you paid, and you'll not be too depressed while you're doing. But don't think that like everything about your career has to be passion. No, I don't agree with that. And the richest people in this country sell PMS. Nobody's passionate about petrol. They do it because it's an industry where there's money there. Then they come to you and tell you to follow your passion. What if your passion is going to, there's no money in your passion, or it's very hard to make money from your passion, and you want to live a certain lifestyle, you want to travel to those 20 countries in the world, and that thing that is your passion cannot allow you to do that. So I think very, very carefully about striking a balance between what you can get paid for, what you won't be too sad doing, what will still help you contribute to the world in some way, and what gives you a route to financial success. The fourth tip I have is growing your network. And that means sort of being able to make friends and influence people. So in the article, I actually say that poverty isn't necessarily a lack of money. It's a lack of people that can help you turn your dreams into reality. And growing your network is about being very, very strategic about how you spend your time. There's a professor called Jeffrey Pfeffer. He teaches at Stanford, and he says that the people that we like spending time with are actually probably the worst people for us, in that people that our friends probably have the exact same information that we do. They think alike. They have the same sort of networks as we do. They know the same people as we do. So they're really, really bad in terms of networking. And he encourages people that want to get ahead in their careers to actually make friends with different types of people, try and push out their comfort zones, to mix with people that perhaps they're not that comfortable with. And there's a really interesting article in the Harvard Business Review called The Strength of Weak Ties. And research shows that it's actually people that you don't know very well, that you've pushed yourself to meet, that don't know you that closely, that are actually the most beneficial for your career success. So I'd say grow your network, grow it strategically, and grow it in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. Because if you're just staying around the same people, then you're probably not networking strategically. The fifth point is to be aggressive, super aggressive about your self-development. So as soon as you get out of uni, start taking courses. If you're in finance, take your ACCA, start preparing for CFA, start preparing for your MBA, start preparing for any other qualification that can make you stand out from the rest. I think that that's super important in terms of it increases your knowledge, it increases your marketability in the job job arena, and it also just makes you smarter. You just sound more intelligent when you've taken these certifications, in terms of when you answer questions, the way you can think critically, and your subject matter expertise. And I think that the last thing is realize that it will probably take longer and you'll have to work harder. So if you do want a huge degree of career success, then it kind of takes some time. It usually takes, you know, a decade or two, and it usually takes a lot of hard work. It's not something that comes in a year or two, usually. Some people, you know, just have an extraordinary amount of luck. But most people, it takes a decade or two. So take your time, realize that this takes a long time and you need to be consistent. And you also need to spend a huge proportion of your time actually working. I'm going to finish with my favorite quote. Jim Collins is a man that wrote Good to Great, which is one of my favorite books. And the book is about companies that were in the same industry at the same time, doing the same business. And one company failed abysmally, and one company did very well, even though they had exactly the same circumstances. And that's why he named his book Great by Choice. And one of the quotes in that book, I'm now going to share with you as we finish. And it says, "We can only control a tiny sliver of what happens to us. But even so, we are free to choose, free to become great by choice." Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that was a great way to wrap up the session. So much there to unpack. Don't follow your passion. My passion is cooking. Maybe I can. I don't know how I'll combine that with my job, but we'll see. So thank you. You can post your questions in the chat, please, if you have questions for Dr. Ola Brown. I'll just give a minute or two to see if we have questions. It has been a long day. I think we started the session at 9 a.m.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a long time.
It's been, so I must commend you guys. A lot of people have been here since the morning. I'm seeing names that I saw on the first session. And okay, we have one question. And this says, apart from finance, what other industry would you advise a young professional to take a plunge?
Oh, somebody said that I did not mention OAU. It's because of the bats. So what finance, apart from finance, what other industry? I mentioned that everybody knows the industries that make money. Finance is a very lucrative industry. Oil and gas is a very lucrative industry. And I'm not saying that you should not do anything else. But what I'm saying is, you know, I didn't show this slide, but I always say don't follow your passion. Try and find a mix between passion, mission, vocation, and profession. So you've got to find what's in the middle of what you love. That's important. You actually have to like it a little bit, what you're good at, what the world needs, but also very, very important, what you can be paid for.
Okay, someone is asking, how do I get into finance?
Ngozi, I think you're in a good position to answer.
I had my session earlier and I wasn't asked, but I think you know, it's pretty easy. There are certifications, so that's if you didn't study any finance-related course in the university, you can do ETCA. Finance is really broad, basically. So you need to sort of narrow down where you see some interests, and then study. And why I said Dr. Ola is an inspiration to me, because transitioning from health or medicine to finance is something that I think was very impressive. And I mean, she's going for PhD, master's. She writes more articles than even people that started in finance. And, you know, so it's just, if you are interested in the sector, look for which aspect you want to focus on. And honing, there are so many courses online, Coursera. Spend your time wisely. She said that, Banji said that earlier, you know, if you really want to differentiate yourself from the pack, you can't be on Instagram all day. Unfortunately, you do have to get grinding. That's that would be my response. Any other questions? Okpe, would you want to do the vote of thanks? Say any last words before we round up?
Yeah, thanks so much. Dr. Ola Brown, thanks for all the jabs on OAU and the bots. All right, but thanks everyone. It was so rich. The videos will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back and listen again. Some of these things you have to spend time to unpack them, but I mean, we're grateful to all the speakers. We're grateful to everyone. Yeah, so I'm distressing. I have my daughters around to come and help me distress because of sitting for over 6 hours, I guess. So it's been a great one, and I'm grateful to the speakers. I'm grateful to all the participants as well. Without you, it would have been an empty room as well. So thank you so much. So next year is going to be powerful. We're currently collaborating with NYSC, so we could make it bigger and greater. So yeah, so that would also be something that we're doing. It's okay, Jasmine. So we're speaking with them. So our next event is definitely going to be a lot bigger than this. And we're going to even have much more spread of guests, more international people as well, combined with people here who are on ground as well. But I'm so grateful to the organizers, to Ngozi, to Sheyi, to Yinka Tanimomo, to Frank, to Mujisola Olorufemi, to Baba Femi, Fawole, everyone who has been part of this. Thank you so much. So there's a mentoring program that we have that will also be hosted on the website. I don't know. Sheyi, do you have the link to it yet? If not, we'll have to. If you have the link, let's drop it here so people can fill out the form and apply to be mentored. If not, it's going to be on our website very soon. So yeah. So, and we'll also communicate to you via emails how you can reach us. So if you haven't registered and you want us to continue to communicate with you, you probably should go to the website and register just so we can collect your data. So of course, now the event has happened. It's not like, but at least it'll be good to have your data, and then we can communicate with you going forward. So thank you, everyone. Do have a great time. Everything that you've learned, my brother, start to work with it. If you see our impact report, last year we had this event and we had an immense impact. We had people from Rotman. We had one of us won Chevening Scholarship. We had some of us became charter holders. We have some of us, a lot, double promotion, double things happening. So now we can collaborate more with more people. I'm seeing a collaboration opportunity with Ayokunnu of Ayokunnu, Ojeniyi. I'm seeing a lot of collaboration as well with NYSC. And if you also have ecosystem of young people and NYSC that we can collaborate with, please share with us. We're super willing. All the people that have spoken today, not just those who have spoken, those of us who have organized it as well. Sheyi, Comfort, Olorunfemi, Mojisola Olorunfemi, all those people that we are, by the grace of God, we're doing stuff within our space as well. So go network with everybody, organizers of these events, speakers who have spoken, go and network with us. We started, this number has been consistent from the beginning to the end, which is very, very encouraging, which is that you guys are having a blast. Even as I'm talking and we're running up, I was expecting people to be dropping off. Yeah, people are still on the call. Like, you really want to see the very end of it. So I'm grateful that you're on the call. So please do have a wonderful time. Thank you, and go and vote as well. Vote your conscience, but more importantly, my brother, don't vote politicians that will put us into another 4-8 years of darkness. Go vote the right people. If I would say, if you're not obedient already, you should be, but you don't have to. Anyways, let's have a wonderful time. Bye-bye, everyone. Cheers.